Okay, so what is an image? So you are used to this kind of signal. So you are used to x of t. So this is a function that goes from real to real. So for instance, you are used to these continuous functions. You are also used to discrete functions. In a discrete function, your domain are the integer numbers, and then the range are the real numbers. And for instance, the Fourier transform. So the Fourier transform of a signal is another signal whose range now is real, but the domain is real, but the range are complex numbers. Okay, so what is an image? An image is another signal. So an image, now you have x and y, will be a function that goes from r squared to r. Okay, so this is in general, and you may restrict, for instance, let's say that you have an image. So this is your image. This is the 0, 0 coordinate. This is the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and then your image is only in this area. So this is where your image is, and it has a width w and a height h. And then you may define that image as a function that goes from the area, let's see how to write it. So it goes from 0 to w times 0 to h, and it goes, let's say that our image goes from 0 to 255, only taking the integer values, so it goes 0, 1, 255. Let's say that we have a color image. Then if we have a color image, then this is Q, okay, because we have 3 values for each one of these coordinates. Let's say that our image is discrete. We don't have all possible values here, all possible coordinates. Let's say that we don't have the values. What we have is these small squares that are defined at the discrete location. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we can formalize that and say, okay, my image has, it goes from 0, 1 to w times 0, 1 to h, and it goes 0, 1 to 255. Okay, why 255? Because this is the maximum number that you can represent with a bits. It is 2 to the 8 minus 1. So, what is an image? An image is a function. So, and what is a signal? A signal is a function. So, everything are functions. And it has something that is the domain, that is where it is defined. And it has something that is the range, that is what are the values that it takes. And at the end, it looks like this. It looks like this. Okay, so if you look at the picture, you have for every possible location, you have a different value, and that is what we are displaying here. But mathematically, these are numbers, and those are the numbers that we have represented more formally with functions. Okay, good. So, but at any moment you have any question, just interrupt me. Okay, so what is a pixel? A pixel is a pair. It is a pair location and then value. Okay, so let's go to here. So actually, to be a bit more formal, So to be a bit more formal, the range here is not a scalar, it is a vector. So if it is a vector, I should put a bar to indicate that those are vectors. And I could define the same for the coordinates. So, and in general, very frequently, so the location is R, and you have to say that it is a vector. So, okay, so what is a pixel? A pixel is a pair. So a pixel is a pair location and the value of the image at that pixel. Okay, so this is a pixel. So yeah, the pixel implies both location and value of that the image at that location. Okay, so let's advance a bit more. Yeah, so if we have that the range is a single number, then we have a monochrome image. If we have a vector, then it is a multiple band image or a color image. But non ci te Alvanda. Okay, so if we have a color image, we have multiple bands, we have multiple values for a specific location, but also we are not restricted to colors, so we are not restricted to red, green, and blue channels, but we can have multispectral images, so you can collect information at multiple wavelengths and then collect all those images, all those numbers into a single vector. And you would have for every location, you would have a whole vector of possible values, each one measured at a different wavelength. Have you seen multispectral images anywhere? What is an application of multispectral, for instance? What other wavelength is of interest in biomedicine, for instance? Infrared. You need heat, and heat is an electromagnetic wave at a wavelength that is whose wavelength is smaller than visible light. So it's larger than visible light. Okay? So smaller than visible light is ultraviolet. Another very typical application is satellite imaging. So let's say that you want to see through the clouds. So smaller wavelengths, so you don't see through the clouds because the visible light cannot go through. But the ultraviolet can go through because it has a smaller wavelength and it is not scattered so much by the small water drops. So you use multi and also infrared. Also infrared goes through. So it depends on what is the absorption profile of any particular medium. So satellite imaging typically looks at infrared, ultraviolet to see through the clouds and see what is happening. Okay, good. Then we can have multiple bands. The most typical are the color bands, but we are not restricted to that. And yeah, this is the same idea reinforced, that you have an image, and then you have at a particular location, you have a location and a value for that location. And then the pixel is both together. Then image formation. Okay, so a key aspect, if you want to invert a process, is to understand how the process is formed. So if you want to correct any imaging defect, you need to know how that defect came to be. So what is the model that made that image? And this is a very useful model. So we have an object, And then, let me go one step further. And then we have a light source. A light source is in general any energy source. So it is emitting energy. This energy somehow interacts with the object, and the interaction creates more energy coming out from the object. This energy coming out is collected by some optical device that here it is represented by a lens. And then this lens projects that energy onto an imaging plane. And then in that imaging plane, you put a sensor, a camera, whatever, to record what is the energy that is projected onto that plane. And a very typical image formation model is the following. So let's try again to be a bit more formal. So the image that we collect, the image observed at a given location, is an ideal image. An ideal image at that location plus noise, for instance. The noise that also depends. Sorry, this is not scale. This is not a vector. This is a vector. Okay, so what I observed, that is some ideal image, but I don't have access to that ideal image. What I have is a noisy version of that ideal image, and this noise may come from many different sources. So maybe that the light source is fluctuating, and then the number of photons that are arriving is not very constant, or maybe the sensor has some electronic noise, and then it creates noise on top of some kind of average values. And this is one image formation model. So we are seeing image formation model. And there are many more complicated than these. So for instance, we may have one that says that image observed is an ideal image convolved with some kernel plus noise. This is another one that is very typical. And there are many more complicated models. So one more. So at the end, the image formation model is an equation. So images are functions, and functions are created by equations. And so, for instance, we may say, okay, so there is this is the exponential of some integral over some. I don't want to go into these details, but you may have another volume, and then this is prime. This is not the same coordinate as that one, and the differential of set. That's noise. So you can complicate your image formation model in many different ways. So, for instance, this one is the one of CT. So CT, there is an exponential absorption. And so the image formation model tells you how the reality, how the object, these are the object. This is the object, this is the object, this is the object. How the object is translated into something that you read. So this is what the camera is recording. And then the relationship between the true object and the image in your camera, so this is that relationship. And you have to give an equation for that relationship. And that is why it is called a model. This model tries to model reality. The better the model adapts to reality, so the better it represents reality, the best will be all operations that you do on your observation model. So let's say I want to recover the ideal image. This is why you want a model. You want to go from what you have observed to what was ideal. And then you need this model. You need this. Okay, so I need to know how the ideal translated into the observed. Once I understand that, I can invert the process. Okay, so that is why these image formation models, they are so useful. This one is just a graphical representation of that image formation model, but you need that model. Okay, part of the model should include what is happening at the recorder. So let's say that we have a digital camera. We have a function that here the function is continuous. So we have at every possible location, we have a value of what is the light emitted by this object at that location. So it is a whole continuum. But continuum cannot be well represented in the computer. So the computer, what will do, the camera, what will do, it will take, let me take, okay, so, and I want it, there is a way. So, let me take, so I want one of these spaces. Then let's move to here. Okay, so we have this pixel. This is not a good one. We have this pixel. We have this pixel. The amount of energy that arrives to those pixels is not the same. This one, part of it is illuminated by the object. The other part is not. Let's put it here. Here, most of the pixel is illuminated by the object. Okay, and that is why we have different values. This will translate, let's say, into 50 because it is not completely illuminated, while this one will translate into, I don't know, 128 because it is only half of it is illuminated. So what the pixel is doing, this is our pixel, and this is the illumination that we have. So all this area is empty, and then this part has some, I don't know, even some gradient here. So we have some gradient there of colors. So what we are doing is averaging. So we are taking all those values from the continuous image and we are averaging. Okay, so let's put it very simple. So let's say that just to have easy numbers. So let's say that in x and y we have a length delta. Let's say that we are at the origin. We have the first pixel, just not to mess around with the coordinates. So the image that we output, that we use green, the image that I observe here is the double integral from 0 to delta, of the input image. The input image was red, so it is. So the input image is red, so it is the image ideal at that location. And then you have to integrate differential of x, differential of y. This is the same as differential of y. So we are averaging. And if we want to average, we have to divide by the area of that pixel. And the area of that pixel is 1/delta squared. So what we have at the output, is an average of what we have at the input. So we have to model. This is part of our image formation model. So it is not only how the object is translated into an image, that for instance for this CT we had this exponential in the middle, but also how this ideal image that I would be collecting at this place, how it is translated into an observed image. Any questions so far? Okay, then. Yeah. Okay, good. Then we have to sample. Okay, so what is sampling? Sampling means that in this model, this coordinate, make it black, this coordinate here belongs to R squared, meaning that we have a whole continuum, and at every location we are averaging. But actually, that is not what we are doing. What we are doing is just taking a sample, a central sample, in those averages in a regular grid. Okay, so now my image observed is no longer this one. This is not my image observed. My image observed now has a coordinate, but this coordinate belongs to the integers squared. So I have only at 0, 1, 2, 3, but I don't have it at 1.5. And then the rest of the integration is the same. But now, my samples are taken at a regular grid. And this regular grid is also, I make abuse of x and y, and now x and y are discrete, and then they take values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0, 1, and so on. Sometimes, just to make it clear that they are discrete, instead of using x and y, we use R and C. Observations R and C. So this stands for rows, and this stands for columns. Okay, so rows is Y, and columns are X. Okay. So we don't have, so we have already gone one step further. So we had an ideal image. This ideal image has been averaged, and we take a sample of those averages. Okay. Next. Okay, what about the range? The range in all this process, if this is real, all this integral is also real. Okay, so along the process that we have, this is a real number. But real numbers cannot be represented in the computer. So those would need infinite precision. We don't have infinite precision in the computer. What are the typical precisions that you have in computers? Floating point. Floating point. And what is the precision of a floating point? How many bits do you have for a floating point?
64 bits.
32, 64. Okay, so typically we have 32 bits, and these are called floats in most programming languages. And then we have 64 bits, and these are called datas. We're not restricted to that, and there are applications where you want to be extremely precise and you can work with arbitrary number of precision. So if you want to work with 1 1K bits, you can, for a single number. Okay? You need some extra libraries to do that, but you can do it. Okay, so the continuum doesn't exist in the computer, so we are restricted to either these 32 bits, 64 bits. Just see more possibilities. So the other possibility is, instead of having a 32 bits float, we have a 32 bits integer. The ranges are different. And we may also have 16 bits. These are kind of half integers. There are not so many data types in languages having 16 bits. But this is very typical, 8 bits, and these are called char or unsigned char. Unsigned char. Okay, so the images we have presented, going from 0 to 255 with these ones. And this is a good way of working with images, but also working at this level, they are also good. So these are the three most typical ways of working with images. So these ones, okay, they are not exactly real, but they look very much like real numbers because you have a lot of precision there. So some numbers you miss, but not all of them. But this certainly is not a real number. So if we scale our average between 0 and 255, then instead of belonging to a real, we have to scale it back to something that goes from 0, 1, any question? So that process of scaling to some given number of bits is called quantization. So part of our image formation model implies these two operations. So one is sampling. So sampling is the one that is averaging over a region. The other one is quantizing. So once you have your average, that is a real number, you have to quantize it to have to fit into some range that you can keep in the computer. So what we have at the end is the addition of the two processes. So quantizing in colors, here it has been exaggerated. So we have exaggerated the fact that we don't have continuous colors, but we have only discrete colors. So for instance, this whole gradient, the smooth gradient, we have substituted by a gradient that goes steps by steps. So what we have in the computer is an image that implies both processes. So you have to take the real image, compute averages over a small regions, and then quantize those averages into some suitable range, and then that is what you keep. So our pictures in the computer, they are these ones. This one is particularly bad because the processes have been exaggerated. If you make the average, the pixel size very small, then you don't notice these small differences. But that is what you have. Okay, then, yeah, this is again what I was mentioning before. So you have a coordinate axis, and then columns are in X, rows are in Y. Doesn't matter if you start counting up here or down here, doesn't matter. So it is where your coordinate system, the coordinate origin is. Okay, then, yeah, this is the same idea that I was mentioning. So if I want to produce a sample image at a particular location, I have to take the continuous image at that location, consider a neighborhood around, and then average. And these integration limits are taking care of where the integration starts and finishes. So just to be simple, to keep it simple, I only describe the 0, 0 coordinate, so that our integration limits were much simpler. But if you want to be more precise at any other location, then you have to go from in X from C delta to C plus 1 delta and so on. Okay, but the concept is this. You have to integrate over an area. And that is the sampling. And the other one is this process now is better described here. So you see the same ideas that I was sketching. You see them here. So you have to take any pixel, compute the average, and substitute the whole pixel by that average, and then you take the sample in the middle. Yeah. What about quantization? So in quantization, what we are doing is we have a continuous value for that integral. So that integral that is computing the average will have a real output, real in the sense of real numbers. So we have to take those real numbers and substitute by some discrete colors. And again, let's be more formal about that. So the quantization process would be a function Q that takes any real number and produces something that is within a discrete set. Okay, so let's see, represent it like this. So it is a discrete set. And this discrete set can be 0, 1, 255. Can be that one. Or can be, let's say, I don't want to mess with delta. So let's define another Greek letter. So we will use delta. So let's say that your averages, you have looked at your averages, and your averages go from, let's say, I don't know, from 0 to keep simple numbers to 10. Okay? And you want to have there, so all those are the number of photons, let's say, somehow, that you are recording. So your photons go from 0 to 10. But I want to keep it with 8 bits. So what can I do? I can take this range, divide it by delta. So what is the step? If I want to keep 256 steps, I will take 10 divided by 256. This will be my delta. And now I'm going from 0 to 10, but I'm going from 0 to 10 in 256 steps. So now my range will be 0, delta, 2 delta, 3 delta, and up to 255 delta. The 256, I don't take it because that would need more than 8 bits. It would need 9 bits rather than 8. Okay, so you go from 0 to 10. This is almost, say, this is almost 10. It is not exactly 10, because for exactly 10 you would need 256. It is almost 10. And now you see the trick. So whatever my average is, so I don't care if my average is from 0 to 10, from 0 to 1,000, from 0 to 1 million. I will go in the steps of delta, and then I will remove the delta and make a mapping from 0 to 255. So I don't care what is the real number of photons that I'm receiving, or what is the energy, or what is the voltage that I'm receiving. I will map it from 0 to 255 by playing this trick on what is your delta? What is your delta in your range? Okay, so how does this function look like? Okay, so I have to, let's keep this example of 0 to 10, and I want to go in a step steps of delta. So my x goes from 0 to 10. My y, that is q of x, it will go from 0 to 255. Okay, so how does this function look like? Okay, so my function, let's say that I get 0. So what is a reasonable, if you get 0, what is the output? It should be 0. Okay, so I should be there. Let's say that I receive 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. What would be the output of this? It should be 0. It is so close to 0. So this will be 0 again. What about the next one? So you keep increasing your x until you reach delta. When you reach delta, what is the output? It should be 1. So, and again, if you have delta plus a little something, epsilon, you will get 1. And it is not until you get 2 delta you produce 2. So that is a step function. So it goes like this, and this is delta, this is 2 delta, this is 3 delta, and so on. And this is producing 1, this is producing 2, this is producing 3, and so on. Okay, so now, so this is my quantization function. So if I want, for instance, to be precise in my image formation model, so let's say that I want to write what is the image formation model for the CT. So for the CT, I have an object. Let's call it V, volume. Let's make it more. Let's have more space. So I have an object V that depends on a 3D coordinate. This has a 3D coordinate. So I have this object here. Then I have a photon coming in. And it is being attenuated. It is not a photon, it is a photon beam. So this photon beam with many photons is being attenuated through the object. So this is an object. This 3D, and then I'm recording it at some location S. Okay, so what is the image that I observe at S? Okay, so there is an integral through this path. Let's call that path integrated path Z. Z goes along the integration path. So I have to integrate through Z. Let's forget for the moment about the integration limits. And then this is attenuating the beam. So I will have this. So this is, let's not forget it, this is the city model. So computational tomography. So yeah, you are doing an X-ray of a person. And yeah, so we have this, but this is continuous. Now I have to sample. Okay, I will have my sample operation. This is the one that is taking the averages over small pixels. But then I have my quantization operation. So I have my quantization operation, and then I have also noise. And I may have other sources of noise in between. So you may have many multiple sources of noise, each one affecting different parts of the process. Okay, so this is our image formation model. And this is a representation, a color representation of that quantization function. So this quantization function takes an input that is continuous, and then for every segment for every interval in the input produces a discrete output. And you recognize here by the steps, you recognize the delta. This is producing 0 delta, this is producing delta, 2 delta, 3 delta, and so on. Okay, any question? Let's continue. Any question? No? There has been some question about the practice. The practice, I said it yesterday, but for the first month, probably we will only see lectures, because I think that you cannot face the practical without having a basic knowledge. So we will try to advance as much as we can with these theoretical lectures, and then after a month approximately, we will start with the practice, and we will explain it again, so never mind. Okay, so what else? So let's see how an image looks like, and it starts to appear the ideas that we have already mentioned. Okay, so let's say this is MATLAB. We don't care about the syntax, but you read an image, and then, for instance, you ask MATLAB, what is the class of that image? And here it says unsigned integers of 8 bits. And we understand now what it means. So that is the range of the image. So it takes values from 0 to 255. And if I ask what is the size of that image, the size of that image is 600, 1203. And again, we understand what it is. This is the width, or this is the number of rows, number of columns, and the number of bands. So we have, this is the height, the width, and the number of bands. Cuéntanos un chiste, anda. Cuéntanos un chiste. El que llega tarde cuenta un chiste.
No me llega nada en el momento.
¿El qué?
No tengo nada en este momento, la verdad.
Bueno.
Tengo tiempo para
Claro.
pensar.
Sí, cuando va subiendo, uno va pensando. Llego tarde, tengo que contar un chiste. Vale. Whoever is late has to tell a joke. Okay? So if you are late, think of a joke, because you have to tell the rest of the class. Okay, so now we have, this is the height, this is the width, this is the number of bands. Now we understand what it is. Again. Alonso, cuéntanos un chiste, anda.
Este es un capitán de barco que grita, abordar el barco, y el barco quedó precioso.
Viene preparado. Viene preparado. Okay, good. Then, if I now display the image, yeah, this is how it looks like. And yeah, something else. And this is again important. One thing is the information content of an image. The other thing is how to plot that image. So here the aspect ratio is not good. So I have the same numbers, but I have compressed them, and it is only a matter of display. Okay, it is like even mathematics. We take a function. So I can say, okay, this is my. I have a function x of t, and then this is t, and it goes, let's say something like this. So this is 1, because at t equals 1, goes down to 0, and then this I have exploded in some different way, some different color. So this is my x of t. Okay, the x of t is the red. Okay, I can make this plot, but I can also make this other plot. It doesn't change. The information content is the same. So I can say, now this is t, and my function is like this. It's the same. It's exactly the same information. Only that it is displayed in a different way. Okay, this is wider than the other, but we don't care. It is the same information. The function takes exactly the same values at the same locations. Okay, so this is what is happening here. So if, sorry. No, this is my computer. So this is what is happening here. So this is the display, and this is another way of display. And not all displays will keep the aspect ratio to the right size. So for functions, we don't care because we don't have information about what are the relationship between x and y. But for functions, we have in our brains how a face looks like, and we know that these faces look normal and these faces do not look normal. But it is only a matter of display. It is the same as we have done with the x of t. So this is important to distinguish. What is the information content? What is the display of that information content? Those things are not the same thing. Then, again, you can make zooms. For instance, what is a zoom? It is in the function. Let's say that you go to the plot that we had. So in this function, I may have now from, I don't know, from 0.5 to 0.8 because I'm interested in that area. And then I plot my function there. This is a zoom. So zooming is simply plotting, focusing in some region of the axis that you are interested in. That is a zoom. Okay. This is zooming. Okay, then, and if you are zooming, your axis will not start at 0. Okay, because you are zooming some other region of the axis. But again, this is a matter of display. And you may crop it. Okay, so I may redefine my function. If I redefine my function, it is like, okay, so I will define a new function. So I have this x of t, but I will define a new function. I will define a new function, x prime, that is x of t minus 0.5, let's say. Let's take the same value that I used here, 0.5. Okay. So x of t minus e. Let me use plus. If t is between 0 and 0.3 and 0 otherwise. Then what is my x of t? So I'm zooming in this region. So that x prime is actually this zoom. But it is represented now in an axis that is different. So my axis now starts at 0, stops at 0.3, and my x prime is this one. Has exactly the same content, but now the axis is different. Now this axis is different, and that is cropping. So now we have already introduced two functions, or two operators that act on our functions. So zooming is simply a matter of display. But cropping is something different. It is redefining your function. That's the same content, but now your axis is different. Okay. So this is a cropping. Okay. And to do cropping in MATLAB, you have to say, okay, I want to go from this coordinate to this other coordinate in rows, and from this coordinate to this other coordinate in columns, and then I want all buckets. Okay, that is the way of doing cropping in MATLAB, but we don't care about MATLAB. Okay, next. Okay, so now I read another image. So the previous image was a JPEG. That, probably you don't know exactly what JPEG is, but you know it is an image, how it is a way of saving images. Now the image is not a JPEG, it is a GIF file. And it is another way of saving images. And I load my image, okay, they're integers, they have some size, and I display it, and I get something totally crazy. Okay, what is the difference? The difference is that now beside the image, we have loaded something that is called a color map. So now an image is not an image alone, but it is a color map. Or it also has a color map. And if I use the right color map, then I get the right colors. So what is the color map? So the color map is the following. So these are different versions of it, true size and this thing. So this is the aspect ratio, but this is the same idea we had before. Okay, so this is a color image. So this color image at a particular pixel, it will have some three values, one for the RGB, one for each one of the RGB. But what I can do, collect all those values in a table. Okay, so let's say that I take all, that is one intermediate step in these slides that are I will make these numbers in the so I have these intensity values that go from 0 to 255, but I divide by 255. So my information now goes from 0 to 1. Okay, but it doesn't matter, it has the same information, only that it has a different scale. So now they go from 0 to 1. Okay, good. And now the color map is a table. So this table, I keep all the colors that I need. I keep them in my color map. So I need for some particular pixel, I need 0.89, 0.87, 0.38. So I write those three numbers in my color map. So I will have a very long list of colors that I need. And here comes another quantization step. So you take a real image. You keep all the colors that you need. Okay? Can you only keep a few of them? So can you reduce the size of the color map to just a few, 256, let's say? And then, if you do that, then at this particular pixel, all you have to say, you don't have to keep the three numbers anymore. All you have to say is what is the index within the color map. So this is kind of palette where you can say, okay, I will have these 256 colors. Color 214 will be this one. And then if you want to use this color here, you don't have to write the three numbers. You only say 214. Okay, so what you keep here in the image are the indexes of the colors you want to use. Okay, so you say, okay, I don't know, this one will be color 32, and this 32, and this 32, and the next one 33, and so on. And at this point, that you are interested in using 214, use color 214, and then whatever, when you want to display, what you have to do is to use the color map to map the indexes into true colors. And that is actually, when you look at the syntax that we have used, is what we have done. Okay, so at the beginning, we were just plotting the image. But the image were not colors, they were indexes. So they were pointing to what index what color in the color map I want to use. So if I plot the indexes, that is nonsense. Doesn't have any meaning. So the number that I have in the index doesn't have any special meaning. It is only an index to go to the color map and to substitute by the true colors. And this is what this command is doing. Okay, so you have that image, but the color map that you have to use is this one. That is the one that you read from the file. So in the file, you keep only the indexes, and you keep the color map as a table. Why are we doing this? This is a bit convolved. Why to do this trick?
To reduce the weight of the image.
Yeah, to reduce the file size. So if I don't use this trick, for every pixel I have to keep three numbers. So what is the size? It is width times height times 3. But I have to keep 3 numbers for every pixel. But if I have only to keep an index and the table, but the table is much smaller. So if I keep the index, it is times 1, not times 3, because I have to keep only 1 number, not 3 numbers. So now my file size is 3 times smaller. Sorry. And yeah, I can reduce my file size very smart ways using these color maps. So for instance, this is a 24-bit 2-color. So 2-color means you have the 3 channels, RGB. For each one of them, you have 8 bits, and then you use all of them. Okay, so you have a very nice picture. And now, how many colors can you have with 24 bits? Okay, so if I have 24 bits, the amount of colors with 24 bits, how many numbers I can represent with 24 bits? 24. How many are those? Do you have a clue, more or less? These things you should know by heart. Okay, so let's go step by step. Okay, so if you have 8 bits, this is 2 to the 8. What is 2 to the 8? 256. This we should know by heart. And 10 bits. I can represent 10 to the 2 to the 10, and that is more or less exactly. And that is what is called 1K. Okay, so 1K in the computer, K is not 1000, it is 1024. Okay, but almost 1000. Okay, so what about 20 bits? I have 20 bits. This is 2 to the 20. That is 1K times 1K. This is around 1 million. What about 2 to the 24? This is 2 to the 4 times 2 to the 20. This is 16 million. So with 24 bits, you can represent 16 million colors. Okay, so in this image here, I don't know, probably we are not using all of them, but we can represent 16 million colors. Okay, so, but let's say, okay, I don't want to use 16 million numbers. I just want to use 256. But I will choose this 256 in a clever way so that my image doesn't change much. So this is the color map. So we will not see how to choose those numbers so that you are not losing too much information. But there are ways. So you come out with these 256 numbers. And these 256 numbers, now, at every location, you use the index within the color map. And you see that by eye, you cannot tell well the difference between the two images. So they look very much alike. Maybe here, for instance, you see this region is much smoother, but this one is using 16 million colors. This one is using just 256. There is a reduction of 2 to the 16. You see? We are going from 2 to the 24 to 2 to the 8. So there is a factor of 2 to the 16. What is 2 to the 16? 64,000 times less. So we are, this image has 64,000 less information than this one, potential information. But still, you don't see much by eye. If you look carefully, you notice that this this bright spot in this image is not the same as in this one. Otherwise, it looks more or less the same. So color maps are very useful ways of reducing the size. And here is another representation, a zoom now, just to show that there are important differences. But by eye, you don't notice. You see that area. Okay, now that you make the zoom, you see the difference, but otherwise you don't see. Okay, so yeah, these are color maps and so on. Yeah. So it is the same, but now a bit more involved in MATLAB, how color maps are saved in MATLAB and so on. And again, this is more MATLAB stuff. And yeah, but this is an interesting idea. Okay, so once that I know about color maps, I can generate my color map in any way that I want. For instance, okay, so let's say that I want to have a color map that only has red images. So I will construct a color map. So I will construct a table, and this table only has red images. So the green and blue channels, they have to be 0 all the time. And then I will have, the first color will be 0, 0, 0. The second one will be 1, 0, 0. This is RGB. Then 2, 0, 0. All the way down to 2, 5, 0, 0. If I use this as a color map, all images using this color map will be displayed in red. So I have a monochrome image. Let's say that my monochrome image goes from 0 to 255, and I use those numbers as indexes in this table. The image will be displayed in red. You see? What if I construct a color map? What if I construct a color map that is RGB, but it is this one, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 55, 0. Now, and I use the same image, but now it will be accessing this color map. It will be displayed in green. And the same for blue. And what if I use the following color map? So what if I use, we'll use it in black. Now I have RGB, and 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 255, 255, 255. It will be displayed in gray. Because one of the properties of light is that if you have the same intensity in the 3 channels, the color that comes out is a gray level that goes from black here to white. So the same information, the same image, can now be accessing 3 different or 4 different color maps. I can construct the color map in the way I like, and it will be displayed differently. Okay, then here we have that idea. I have a color image. I decompose it in 3 channels. So here I have the red, green, and blue channels, and I'm representing those channels with a black color map, with a gray color map. Let's see if it makes sense. Okay, so for instance, the grays here, they're kind of blue. So they should have higher values in the blue channel than in the other 2 channels. So the grays should be brighter in the blue channel than in the other 2 channels. That makes sense. About the leaves. So this leaf, for instance here, should be green when it has higher values in the green channel than in the other two. So this part of the leaf, so this part of the leaf is red. So it should have higher values in the red channel than in the other two. Any questions? Next. Then, yeah, this is the same. But now I can use different color maps to represent that. So it is the same information, but now it is displayed in a different way. So I am using, this is a red, this was the red information, and I'm displaying it in red. But I wouldn't care. So you may display it in blue, and still it has the information of the red channel. So one thing is the information, the other thing is how you display it. So by changing the color map, I can make this kind of Western displays. And this is just the same, but this guy likes a lot going back and forth in the slides, and it is the same. Okay, so let's play a bit with this. Let's see what time it is. Okay, so last year, the people did some practices in MATLAB instead of yours. So let me start sharing. Let me share my screen instead of the other one. Or does this one needs to stop sharing? So this one will stop sharing. I will start sharing mine. So you should see my screen. Okay, so yeah, they designed a little tool for lecturing. So let's run it. So here we have a small okay, so we have this tool and we load an image. So let's say that take these images of some cells. Do you know how fluorescence in a microscopy is generated? So you put labels, fluorescent labels on proteins that you are interested in. So let's say that you have a protein in the nucleus of the cell that it is only expressed in that nucleus, and you label it. And this label is fluorescent. So fluorescence means you illuminate with some wavelength, and the protein responds, emits light at some other frequency, at some other wavelength. And there are many kinds of labels. So I can put a label that emits in blue, that emits in green, that emits in whatever wavelength that I would measure. And the microscope has multiple sensors for each one of the wavelengths. Actually, you are not restricted to 3. You can have 5 channels or whatever number of channels. It is a little bit like the satellite imaging that we were mentioning before. And each channel will collect how much light I'm receiving at this particular location. And then once you have that image, that is a gray image, you put it into one of the channels that you want. But it doesn't mean that it is blue, red, or green. It is only a matter of display. What you have is an array of numbers, a matrix of numbers coming from that wavelength. So here they have labeled the nucleus in blue, actin in green, and then the rest of the cell in red. So the membrane is in red. And then we have this image, and I can, for instance, with this tool, I can take this one and separate the channels. Okay, so I want to separate the channels using the color maps that they are coming from. So now we have the membrane of the cell in red, the actin information in green, and the nucleus information in blue. And I could also separate this one, in green. And now what I have is simply the access of the 3 channels, but now in a gray color map. Right? It's the same information that I had before. And I may even combine them in different ways. So for instance, here I have the 3, so the original image and now the 3 channels. And then I may combine them in some other funny way. So for instance, the natural way would be, okay, you put here red, you put here green, you put here blue, and then you recover the original image. And I could reorder them. So for instance, let's exchange red and blue. The information is the same, but the image looks different. It is the same information, exactly the same information. It's only a matter of how it is displayed. You see that you can have very funny representation. Okay, what else can we do? For instance, I think I have closed the image I didn't want. So let's close this one. Let's load this image again. And okay, so now show me the color map. So now what I have here is the indexes that go from 0 to 256, and these color maps that they are scaled from 0 to 1. So in each channel, it doesn't matter, it is only a scaling factor. So they may go from 0 to 1, 0 to 255, or 0 to whatever. And here it is important is that for this index, you have a lot of red light, a lot of green light, and very little blue light. And then with only 256 colors, we have an image that looks very much alike this one. And we have reduced the number of colors from 16 million to just 256. Okay, what else can we do? So for instance, we can inspect the values, the pixel values. This doesn't work, I think. So we can take. So at this row, this column, it has a gray value of 16, but 16 is the index, so it is not showing the right color. And it says what is the index that you have at that location. But the index is not so useful. We have seen that we need the color map to understand what the true color at that location is. Okay, so I think, any question? No? Okay, so some important idea from today. The display is not the image content. So the image content is the true information, the displays, just the displays, how to show that information like this, not the true image content. Okay, so then let's continue. The slides are here. I will stop sharing. Stop sharing. Then this one will share. This one share. And then let's continue. Okay, so now, let's say that instead of an image, we have two images. So what can I do with two images? So I have two images of different size, and I want to do some operation between the two. So I want to add both. So the first thing is that we need, so we know that this is a matrix, maybe several matrices, because it has multiple colors. This is again 3 matrices. And these 3 and 3 matrices, they are of different size. So the number of rows and columns are different. So the first thing, if I want to add matrices, is to have them of the same size. So I will make a crop. Now we know that operation. I will do a crop of this matrix. I will keep it to the same size of this one. And then once that the matrices are of the same size, I can add them. So these are matrices of numbers, so I can add the numbers. Okay, so this is the MATLAB code, but we don't care. But there is an interesting thing. Okay, so let's think of it separately. Okay, so let's make the reasoning only with one band, not the 3 bands at the same time. So I have an image 1 that at a particular location goes from, let's be a little bit soft about this. So we know that we have integer numbers, but okay. So let's be precise. I don't okay, so it goes from 0 to 255, let's say. 255. I have another image that also goes from 0 to 255. And I construct a new image that is I2 plus I1. And I will call this I3. Let's remove the position to keep the notation simple. Okay, so this function goes from C squared. So at the same locations, I take what are the values at the same location and I add them to what value? $510. So it goes from 0 to 510. And 510, how many bits do you need to keep something that goes from 0 to 510? 9 bits. So in general, if something has k bits, and this something, other something has k bits, and you add, the result will have k plus 1 bit. What if I subtract? So I take something that is stored with k bits, this is stored with k bits. How many? If I subtract the 2 images, how many bits do I need? 0. K plus 1 again. K plus 1. Okay, then I cannot keep this one with 8 bits. So this is not actually a good thing. So what I can do is, okay, I will add them, but before adding, I will multiply by 0.5. And then I keep it. Now it goes from 0 to 155. You need some rounding. Okay, you need some rounding because you may have, I don't know, 200.5. And that again, you cannot keep with 8 bits. So either you keep 200 or you keep 201. But you round, let's call it again here. Let's put my quantizer. And my quantizer is rounding and sending the values that it sees to the mapping to the range that I can store in my computer. Do you see? Okay, so let's see the code. And again, about the MATLAB syntax, we don't care. But the ideas, we do care. Okay, so what are we doing? This is the cropping. I'm only keeping some parts of the rows and some parts of the columns. Okay, so I'm cropping the first image, then I'm converting to double, so augmenting the range from 0 to 255 to 0 to infinity, these real numbers. So I'm making it real, adding the 2, dividing by 2, and then my quantization again. And then this is addition. Now, this is that will be the same thing. And now this is what I get. So it is the addition of the 2, these 2. Okay, good. Then, what else? Yeah. Again, this is MATLAB code. Yeah, this is very interesting. Okay, so let's say that instead of adding the 2, I multiply the 2. So I have this 2, and I multiply. So now I3, let's make it blue again. So now I3, and let's drop the coordinates because they are convenient way. It is I1. So it is I1 times I3. So at every location, I2. So at every location, I take the value of I1, take the value of I2, and multiply. Okay, so this goes from where to where? So this goes from set square to where? So this goes, let's say, again, to keep it simple, 2 to the 8, 2 to the 8. It is almost 2 to the 8. It is 2 to the 8 minus 1. But let's keep it simple, 2 to the 8. So if I multiply two images, it goes from 0 to 2 to the 8 to 0 to 2 to the 16. So it goes from 0 to 2 to the 16 minus 1. And then these rules of bits, if I add two numbers of k bits, I need k plus 1. But if I multiply two numbers of k bits, I need 2k bits to give it. Okay, so 2k bits is a bit too much. Okay, so I can only keep it in 8 bits. Okay, so let's see a tree. Okay, so let's say that my I3 in this way goes from 0 to 2 to the 2k. But I want it to go from 0 to k. I'm skipping the minus ones, just to keep it simple. I want to go from 0 to 2k, so this will be I3 prime. This is the one I will store. This is kind of intermediate result. Okay, so now, how do I map it? So I want a function, make this function green, that takes any value here, I3 value, and scale it to I3 prime. What is that function? Okay, let's make it general. So in general, I want a function. Let's make it as general as we can. Okay, so in general, I want a function that takes something that goes from m, from a minimum to a maximum, and maps it to a different minimum and maximum. Okay, so I want this function. I want that function. What is that function? So let's call it this. Let's call this x. Let's call this y. And y is equal to f of x. This is a line. Which line is it?
Divided by 2 power b.
Sorry?
Divided by 2 power b. And
This is a line defined by these 2 points. It's very simple to write it. This n prime plus x minus n divided by n minus n times n prime minus n. You may write it differently if you want. You may say, for instance, here, if you write it in this way, it is very easy to recognize. So y minus n prime is equal to n prime minus n prime divided by n minus n x. There are many ways of writing it. You see it is a line. Okay. What is the slope of the line? The slope of this line is this one. Which is this slope. Okay, so this transformation is very important. This is really, really important because it can scale whatever input values into whatever output values. So you may take something that goes from 0 to 2k, and you can scale it from 0 to 2k, and you can scale it to 0 to k. And so you can do whatever transformation that you want. Okay, let's look at it. We recognize it here. So we are multiplying, and then once you multiply, you are taking the maximum, you are taking the minimum of the output. So of this multiplication, and then you recognize here, you recognize the structure. So this is x minus the minimum divided by m minus the minimum multiplied by 255, that is the maximum of the output that you want to have, and then your quantizer. So you can take any value, any image, and scale it from 0 to 255. This is what this is doing. You can scale it to 255, 0 to 255, as you want. Yeah, so here you have the same transformation. So that I can, now that I have this operator is the scaling operator. So this is a scaling operator. I can take images that have low contrast and map them to 0 to 55, and immediately I will have a larger contrast. What is contrast actually? Contrast is the difference between minimum and maximum. So let's say that you have an image that the minimum and maximum, they are too close. So that means, let's say that it is a red image. So those are two red tones that are very similar to each other. So you don't see the difference between the two. But if now the minimum goes to 0 and the maximum goes to 255, now there is a lot of red colors in between, and now you recognize. If they're too close, for you they are almost the same. So you can take now any image, apply the scaling operator, and the scaling operator will increase the contrast immediately. And again, do you have more information or the same information? Sorry? You have the same information. So the information is the same, only that it is stored in a different way. But the information is the same. We will go more times about this idea of information. Okay, why restricting to multiplications? I can do logarithms, or I can do whatever. So, for instance, let's say that we have learned this trick of reducing the file size with the color map. Okay, so let's say that I take, instead of the color map, I take an image and the quality 0 JPEG version of it, and I compute the difference. Okay, so now that I know that those are numbers, I can do whatever operation I want. So I can take the original image minus the color map, if you want, compute the difference, compute the absolute value, and this will be my new version, my new image D, and I can display D through my scaling operator, or by taking the logarithm of the difference and then my scaling operator, or by squaring the D and then quantize it. So now you can be very creative about the way you manipulate your images. And we know that what we are doing is simply just a matter of display. So the information content is most of the times it is conserved. We'll go back to that later along the course. Okay, what time is it?